Welcome back to another video on Influential Sports. Make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And today, this was underplanned, but St. John's, they played Arkansas yesterday, and they ended up losing. And R.J. Lewis, St. John's best player, he had been great all year. And then yesterday, he struggled. He was 3 of 17 from the field. He missed a lot of layups. He missed his first 7 shots, and 5 of those were layups in the game. St. John's ended up losing that game as the 2 seed. They got eliminated in the round of 32. And he just seemed off in the game. And this video isn't about that necessarily, because his body language, facial expressions, I could tell there was something more than basketball going on. Like, he just seemed off in that game. He was missing a lot of easy layups too. So yeah, he finished the game 3 of 17, and he didn't play in the final for. It was like the final 3 or 4 minutes that he didn't play because of how bad he had been struggling. And the commentators were really confused by it. But I don't think that was a terrible decision by Rick Pitino as the St. John's coach. I think him not playing was a good decision, because the reason why St. John's was able to stay in the game and keep it competitive is because of what the other guys were doing. Because they had multiple guys in foul trouble. R.J. Lewis was off. So the other guys were keeping the game close and keeping it competitive till the end. So not bringing R.J. Lewis back in was a good decision for a few reasons. Number one, I think that's a good job of showing discipline. Like, you're struggling real bad and the other guys are helping you stay in the game, then you're going to roll with those guys who are helping you. And I'm going to use the example later. But I think, like, he's 3 of 17. Obviously, he's the best player. But in a game like this, where the momentum that you have is because of your bench players or your other starters who are also good players, I think it's a good decision to leave him on the bench. Because if he comes back in there and he throws off the rhythm and the momentum of the team, that could hurt them. I think in a championship game, that'd be different. Like the round of 32 in a championship game, even though they're both important, I think obviously the championship game will be more important. But I think this was important because he was off all night, not just him shooting wise, but he just looked out of it. Like, when his teammate when he was shaking him to try to get some energy back in him, like, he just didn't do anything. Like, he was like, his face was like froze. And then when he was on the bench, when they showed him, and it's not even like he was angry about being on the bench. Like, he understood it, but in his face, he just seemed off. But if it was something that was off, it was probably, like I said, a good decision, even with that included, because if he's just off in his entire night he's been off, I don't think anything would have changed. And, like, there is occasions where it could change. But for the example I wanted to use, the OKC and Timberwolves game a few weeks back, they played back-to-back games, but it was the first game that they had, or was it the second one? Either way, it was one of those games went to overtime, and Anthony Edwards, he had been struggling. He was 5 of 21. And Chris Finch decided, I'm going to leave him on the bench for these last 3 minutes because the bench is hot right now. They've led to comeback. Like, we were down double digits in the last 3 minutes, and our bench led to comeback. So if it goes to overtime, I'll put Anthony Edwards back in the game. But during those final few minutes, he was like, the bench, they had a momentum. They've gotten us back into the game, and they sent it to overtime because of that. And then when it hit overtime, Anthony Edwards was back playing once again, which was a good decision, because if Anthony Edwards comes in there during those last 3 minutes and throws some momentum off, they might lose that game. And that game was super important in a close Western Conference race, and they trying to get out the play-in. So then, like, Anthony Edwards, he wasn't mad at it. He understood, like, I'm having a terrible night. I should be on the bench, especially if the other guys like Naz Reid, etc., are leading the team, leading the bench. They're leading a comeback against the top seed in the West, against one of the best teams in the league. So I think if St. John's could have forced overtime, like they had a chance to, R.J. Lewis definitely would have been back in the game. But I wanted to use that example because I think that's a good thing when coaches do that. Like, your bench is hot, you need to ride that wave, especially late in the fourth quarter, because if it goes into overtime, you can bring your superstar back in and start overtime, because that's a whole new period. I like when coaches do that. It shows, not only does it show discipline, but it's a good thing. It shows that they have trust in their other players. Like, your bench leads to come back, and you just take everybody out and put the starters back in, and they lose. How does that look on you as a coach? And you got to have faith in some of your other players, especially the bench guys, because they can provide a spark. Lou Williams, who was one of the greatest six men in NBA history, he played starter type minutes for the Clippers because of how good he was. Like in that series against the Warriors in 2019, when they took them to 6 games, those were Lou Williams was the sixth man that was playing starter type minutes. So I like that decision for Rick Pitino and St. John's. Obviously, they ended up losing to Arkansas. They got upset, but it's not as bad as people make it seem. Like, he's struggling. He looks out of it. Leave him on the bench because he hasn't been a positive impact. He wasn't a positive impact at all in that game. Like, from start to finish, he was just bad. So I think it was a good decision, and that's why I used the Anthony Edwards example, because your star player shouldn't always be playing the final minutes. If your star player is struggling and the bench is leading a comeback, I believe that the people who led the comeback should be in that game to make it happen. Now, if it's a championship game or it's a final series, then, but at the end of the day, you're trying to move on to the next round. Like, you won't have that opportunity again until next season. So I think that was important to do that. Like, that win that the Timberwolves got against OKC when they left Anthony Edwards on the bench, that was important. Now, will it happen in a playoff series with the Anthony Edwards team? It's unlikely, but these coaches understand that if the bench is hot, then I have to ride that wave to get the win. Like, at the end of the day, the most important thing is winning. It's not about how your superstar or star player feels, if he's on the bench or not. If he's upset, that's cool, but if you get the win, will he still be upset? No, because you got the win, you move on to the next game. Like, every win, every game matters. But I think leaving R.J. Lewis on the bench, it wasn't a bad decision. I think it made a lot of sense, and that's why I used the example of what Chris Finch did with Anthony Edwards. But something seemed off with R.J. Lewis, like I said in the beginning of this video. If it's not, then I misread. But if it is something going on, prayers up to him, because he just seemed off in that game. But shout out to Arkansas in advancing, and shout out to Rick Pitino for making a decision that not a lot of coaches would, because some coaches definitely would have put him back in that game, and it could have caused, and it could have worked or it could have not worked. But I think it was a good decision. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what y'all think.